At 10:23 a.m. on January 3, 1943, Staff Sergeant Alan Magee curled inside the ball turret of B-17F Snap, Crackle, Pop as German flak exploded across the sky 22,000 feet above Saint-Nazaire. The 24-year-old ball turret gunner was flying his seventh mission with the 8th Air Force's 303rd Bomb Group. 7 of his 9 crewmates would be dead within minutes. The ball turret was the most exposed position on any bomber, a glass sphere hanging beneath the fuselage with 2 50-caliber machine guns and barely enough room to breathe. Magee had been chosen for this position because he was short and thin, 5 feet 4 inches and 130 pounds. The Army needed men who could fold themselves into impossible spaces. What the Army did not know was that this mission would test whether a human body could survive a 4-mile fall and crash through a train station roof. The answer should have been no. Medical science said it was impossible. German doctors who found him said he should have been dead. But Magee proved them all wrong. If you want to discover how this ball turret gunner survived the impossible, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps us share these incredible true stories with more people. Subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to comment below where you're watching from. Your engagement keeps these forgotten heroes' stories alive. Now back to January 3rd, 1943. The mission briefing had started at 6 a.m. at RAF Molesworth in Cambridgeshire, England. 85 B-17 Flying Fortresses were assigned to bomb Saint-Nazaire's submarine pens on the French Atlantic coast. The Germans had built massive concrete bunkers there to protect their U-boat fleet. These submarines were strangling Allied supply lines across the Atlantic. Destroying them was critical. But Saint-Nazaire was defended by more than 200 anti-aircraft guns. Air crews called it Flak City. In the previous 3 months, German gunners had shot down 47 bombers over Saint-Nazaire. Magee's squadron had lost 9 ball turret gunners since November. The survival rate for ball turret gunners was the lowest of any position. When a B-17 was hit, the ball turret often took direct damage. If the hydraulics failed, the gunner was trapped inside. If the bomber crashed, the ball turret hit first. Magee knew the statistics. Every ball turret gunner did. They climbed into that glass sphere anyway. The formation lifted off at 7:15 a.m. Snap, Crackle, Pop was flying in the high squadron, 3rd plane from the right. Magee entered his turret through the hatch in the fuselage floor. He squeezed his body into the cramped space, feet in stirrups, knees bent, hands on the gun controls. The hatch closed above him. He was now suspended beneath the bomber in a rotating glass ball, staring down at the English Channel 12,000 feet below. The turret's electric motors hummed as Magee tested the rotation. Left, right, up, down. The guns responded smoothly. He loaded belts of 50-caliber ammunition. Each round was nearly 5 inches long, designed to punch through aircraft aluminum at 2,000 yards. The formation crossed the French coast at 9:47 a.m. German radar stations tracked them immediately. Air raid sirens wailed across Saint-Nazaire. Anti-aircraft crews rushed to their guns. German fighter squadrons scrambled from nearby airfields. Magee scanned the sky through his glass sphere. The view was panoramic and terrifying. He could see everything: the ocean below, the French countryside, the other bombers in formation, and most importantly, any fighter attacking from below. The German fighters hit first. Focke-Wulf FW-190s attacked from 6 o'clock, diving through the formation with cannons blazing. Magee tracked a fighter closing fast. He squeezed his triggers. The twin 50 calibers hammered, spent brass ejecting into collection bags beside him. Tracers arced across the sky. The FW-190 rolled away, trailing smoke. More fighters attacked from every angle. The formation tightened, bombers flying wingtip to wingtip so their combined firepower could repel the fighters. Magee's turret rotated continuously, tracking targets, firing short, controlled bursts. The gun barrels grew hot. Smoke filled the turret. Then the flak started. Black bursts exploded throughout the formation.
Each burst was an 88mm shell detonating at precisely the right altitude, sending thousands of steel fragments in every direction at supersonic speed. Magee felt the impacts shake, snap, crackle, pop. Shrapnel punched through the fuselage, making sounds like hail on a tin roof. Through his intercom, Magee heard the pilot's voice. 10 minutes to target. Hold formation. The bombardier was lining up his Norden bomb sight. The formation had to fly straight and level for the bombing run. No evasive maneuvers. They were sitting ducks. The flak intensified. German gunners were firing everything they had. The sky turned black with explosions. A direct hit struck Snap Crackle Pop's right wing. The explosion was massive. The wing shredded, fuel tanks igniting. Fire spread along the wing surface. Magee felt the bomber lurch. Through his intercom came screaming. The waist gunner was hit. The radio operator was calling for help. The pilot was fighting the controls. Another flak burst hit directly beneath the ball turret. The explosion was deafening. Shrapnel tore through the turret's thin aluminum skin. Magee felt impacts across his body, his chest, his arms, his face. Blood sprayed across the inside of the glass sphere. Pain screamed through him. 28 pieces of shrapnel had penetrated his body. The turret's electric motors died. The rotation stopped. Magee was stuck, unable to move the turret, unable to exit. Through the blood in his eyes, he saw the bomber's bomb bay doors open above him. The pilot was still trying to complete the mission, even as the aircraft was dying. Bombs fell away. The bomber lurched upward, suddenly 4,000 pounds lighter. But it was too late.
Another flak burst tore away a section of the right wing. The bomber entered a violent spin. The centrifugal force pressed Magee against the side of his turret. He could not reach the manual hand crank to rotate the turret into exit position. He was trapped, spinning inside a dying bomber. The intercom went dead. The pilot's voice was gone. The screaming was gone. Only the howl of wind and the scream of straining metal. Magee grabbed for the emergency release handle. His fingers slipped. Blood made everything slick. He tried again. The handle would not budge. The turret was damaged, the mechanism jammed. Through the glass, Magee watched the ground spinning closer. Buildings, roads, the train station's distinctive roof. They were going down. He was going to die inside this glass coffin. The altitude was dropping catastrophically. 18,000 feet, 15,000. The cold at that altitude was 40 below zero. Magee's breath frosted the glass. His blood froze on the metal. 12,000 feet, 10,000. Then suddenly the turret hatch above him moved. Someone was trying to open it from inside the fuselage. The hatch swung open. Hands reached down. Another crew member was trying to pull him out. Magee grabbed the hands. He tried to pull himself up, but his body would not respond. The shrapnel wounds, the blood loss, the spinning. Everything was shutting down. The bomber lurched violently. The nose dropped. The tail came up. Magee lost his grip. He fell back into the turret. 8,000 feet. The helping hands disappeared. Whoever had tried to save him was gone, thrown somewhere else in the spinning bomber or bailed out. Magee was alone again. The oxygen system had failed. At 20,000 feet, there was not enough oxygen to stay conscious. Magee's vision tunneled. Darkness crept in from the edges. His last conscious thought was of his mother. Then everything went black. He never felt himself leave the turret. He never felt the bomber break apart. He never felt the moment his unconscious body was thrown clear into the open air. Alan Magee was falling 4 miles above France, spinning through the frozen sky at 120 miles per hour, completely unconscious, with no parachute. On the ground in Saint-Nazaire, French civilians heard the bomber's engines screaming. They looked up and saw pieces falling, wings, tail sections, bodies. Then they saw something else, a single dark object, smaller than the wreckage, falling in a different trajectory. Some thought it was a bomb. Others thought it was debris. No one imagined it was a man. Magee fell for approximately 90 seconds. His body tumbled through the air, unconscious,
unable to brace for impact, unable to prepare. At terminal velocity, a human body falls at roughly 120 miles per hour. But Magee's fall was not straight down. Wind currents pushed him. The spinning momentum from the turret gave him lateral movement. His trajectory angled toward the center of Saint-Nazaire, toward the train station. The station had been built in 1885 with a distinctive arched glass roof designed to let natural light into the platforms. The roof consisted of multiple layers of glass panes set in iron frames. Each pane was about a quarter-inch thick, separated by air gaps. Magee's falling body struck the apex of the roof at approximately 10:31 a.m. The first layer of glass shattered on impact. His body crashed through, momentum barely slowed. The second layer shattered, then the third. Each breaking pane absorbed a fraction of the kinetic energy. Not much, but enough. His body slid along one of the sloped iron roof beams. The beam's angle deflected his trajectory from straight down to diagonal. More energy absorbed, more velocity lost. He crashed through the final glass layer and fell 25 feet to the station floor. He landed on his right side. The impact shattered bones throughout his body. Right arm nearly severed at the shoulder. Multiple rib fractures. Right leg broken in 3 places. Ankle shattered. Skull fractured. Nose crushed. Right eye socket destroyed. Both lungs punctured. Right kidney ruptured. All of this on top of the 28 shrapnel wounds he had received before the fall. French railway workers heard the glass exploding. They ran to the platform. They found Magee lying in a pool of blood and broken glass, surrounded by shattered roof panels and twisted iron. They assumed he was dead. Then one of the workers saw Magee's chest move. He was breathing. Barely, but breathing. The workers were terrified. The Germans controlled Saint-Nazaire. Helping an American airman could mean execution. But leaving him to bleed out was not an option. One of the workers ran for help. Within minutes, German soldiers arrived. They surrounded Magee with rifles raised. When they saw his condition, they lowered their weapons. This man was not a threat. He was a medical impossibility.
German medics arrived with a stretcher. They worked carefully, trying to stabilize Magee's shattered body. His right arm hung by tendons and skin. They wrapped it. His leg bones protruded through his flight suit. They splinted them. His face was unrecognizable, crushed and torn. They bandaged it. Loading him onto the stretcher caused Magee to regain consciousness. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. He screamed. The German medics gave him morphine. Lots of morphine. They transported him to a military hospital in Saint-Nazaire. German doctors examined him and were astonished he was still alive. One doctor counted his injuries. 28 shrapnel wounds, crushed skull with multiple fractures, severe facial trauma with destroyed right eye socket, right arm nearly amputated, 6 broken ribs with bilateral lung punctures, right kidney severely damaged and bleeding internally, right leg broken femur, tibia, and fibula, shattered right ankle, multiple lacerations across entire body, estimated blood loss, over 3 pints. The lead German doctor told his staff that Magee should have died in the fall. If not then, he should have died from blood loss within minutes. If not then, he should die from shock within hours. But Magee kept breathing. His heart kept beating. His body refused to quit. German medical staff provided what care they could. They operated on his arm, reattaching torn muscles and vessels. They drained his lungs. They set his broken bones. They cleaned his wounds. They gave him blood transfusions, using blood from German soldiers. Some of the German doctors had treated casualties from both sides. They had seen thousands of wounded men. They told Magee he had survived the longest fall without a parachute they had ever documented. They said it was medically impossible. Yet, here he was. Magee drifted in and out of consciousness for 3 days. When he was awake, German intelligence officers interrogated him. Squadron number, bomber designation, target information, radio frequencies. Magee gave them nothing. Name, rank, serial number. That was all. The interrogators tried for 2 weeks, then gave up. On January 20th, 1943, German guards transferred Magee to Stalag 17B, a prisoner of war camp in Austria. He spent the next 28 months there. His arm healed incorrectly, leaving it partially paralyzed. His leg healed with a permanent limp. His right eye never recovered, leaving him partially blind. But he was alive. On May 3, 1945, American forces from the 13th Armored Division liberated Stalag 17B. Magee was one of 29,000 prisoners freed that day. He was 26 years old. He had been a prisoner for 28 months. He had survived a 22,000-foot fall without a parachute. He weighed 98 pounds. The Army transported him to a hospital in France, then to England, then to the United States. Doctors at Walter Reed Army Hospital in Washington, D.C. documented his injuries and were amazed at his recovery. They wrote detailed reports. They took photographs. They studied his case. In 1981, Smithsonian Magazine featured Magee as one of the 10 most amazing survival stories of World War II. After the war, Magee earned his pilot's license and worked in the airline industry for 34 years. He married Helen and lived a quiet life. He rarely spoke about the fall. In 1993, 50 years after his bomber was shot down, the city of Saint-Nazaire invited Magee to return. They had erected a 6-foot memorial at the train station honoring the crew of Snap, Crackle, Pop. Magee stood at the station where he had crashed through the roof 5 decades earlier. A reporter asked him what he remembered about the fall. Magee said he remembered nothing. The last thing he recalled was seeing the helping hands disappear, then darkness, then waking up in a German hospital, in agony. He looked up at the train station roof, now fully repaired, and said something that no one expected. "I thought it was much smaller." Alan Eugene Magee died on December 20, 2003, in San Angelo, Texas, at 84 years old. He had lived 60 years after falling 4 miles and crashing through a glass roof. He was cremated and buried at Pioneer Memorial Park. His wife Helen and his sister survived him. His medals, the Air Medal and Purple Heart, were buried with him. That was Alan Magee, a New Jersey boy who became a ball turret gunner and survived what every doctor said was impossible. If this story moved you, smash that like button. It genuinely helps us continue sharing these forgotten histories with people who need to hear them. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. We're uncovering more incredible World War II survival stories that deserve to be remembered. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss them. Tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? And does anyone in your family have a World War II story that's never been told? We'd love to hear it. Thank you for watching, and thank you, Alan Magee, for showing us the limits of human survival can be pushed beyond what anyone thought possible. We won't forget.